Homestake soon began construction of a tailings impoundment 1.5 miles from the mine in the steeply sloped Grizzly Gulch. A dam 230 feet high, more than 1/4 mile wide, impounded nearly 160 acres. Pumps would slurry tailings through a pipeline to the dam and return the water decanted from the impoundment back to the mine for reuse or wastewater disposal. The voters of Lead and Deadwood, meanwhile, approved the construction of a sewage treatment system. The sanitary district commissioned the design of a wastewater plant to be built just below Deadwood by the days of 76 rodeo grounds.
The sewage treatment plant will be somewhat unique for South Dakota in that it will be a completely enclosed facility. Total cost is about $5.8 million, 75% of which is funded by EPA.
Citizens were optimistic.
The US kids will have something to do around it and play around it and inner tube and stuff.
I feel pretty good about the project. That is, there are, all kinds of criticisms that can be made of it, but if you take 3,000 tons of silt a day and all of the raw sewage of 2 towns out of the creek, you can't help but benefit it.
After nearly 20 years of study and concern and an expenditure by Homestake of over $15 million, impoundment of mine tailings was soon a reality. In December 1977, Homestake pumped and discharged tailings for the first time ever, not into Gold Run Creek, but into the Grizzly Gulch impoundment. Heavy snowfalls in the winter of '78 obscured for a while what would be apparent by summer and fall. Above normal snowmelt helped clear out the stream faster than many thought possible. Analysis of the stream by the Department of Environmental Protection established a statistical basis from which the state could monitor the effects of tailings treatment. But you didn't have to be a scientist to see what was obvious.
In comparing the discharge of Homestake's effluent into Gold Run Creek in 1978 versus 1977, Homestake has reduced its discharge by 99.98%, with the exception of a few minor heavy metals, a chemical compound cyanide, and a few suspended solids. The pollutant load has been decreased by 99.98%, and Homestake is pleased with that result.
Before and after comparisons were dramatic.
The creek is beginning to clean up considerably. You can see the bottom of the creek bed, the rocks.
Dr. Alan Lochner was head of what was then the South Dakota Department of Environmental Protection.
You can also see evidence that algae is beginning to grow in the creek, which was impossible before Homestake removed its discharge. And there are evidences within the area, particularly within Deadwood, that other forms of aquatic plant life are beginning to appear, all of which are essential to the food chain for fish life survival. We continue to be optimistic the creek can be rehabilitated.
But not everyone was so impressed.
There's not the sand going down through here, but there's the open, rotten sewerage coming right along. Instead of having the sand in there to color it, you've got the straight flushings right here. You can tell by the color of the creek. We're following the tracks of Russia right now. Too much government dabbling in where there's nothing to be really benefited.
For the first time in a century, the discharge of raw sewage was visible in Whitewood Creek.
So we all look to be stuck out of Deadwood because there's open sewerage coming in.
Completion of the sewage treatment plant in Deadwood would solve the problem, and construction was well underway in the fall of '78. There remained, however, another problem not so easily solved. Wastewater entering Gold Run Creek from Homestake still contained toxic levels of cyanide and heavy metals.
These matters are very complex. The nature of the pollution problem to Whitewood Creek, the volume of the waste, present some very, very complex technical as well as legal problems. Homestake Mining Company was, by April 1 of this year, 1978, unable to meet discharge limitations for cyanide, zinc, and copper. This and related matters has led to considerable litigation.
Homestake began construction of additional treatment facilities. Wastewater would be percolated through a sand filter system. Experimental pilot plants for the destruction of complex cyanides were also built. Though its exterior was unfinished in the spring of '79, the sanitary district's sewage treatment plant was operational, and sewer lines brought wastewater to the new plant for treatment. Waste sludge came out of the plant's centrifuge, ready for useful disposition as a fertilizer on pasture land. After treatment for ammonia and filtering, processed water flowed from the plant past what would be a future holding pond to Whitewood Creek, its quality well within state and federal guidelines. By 1980, Homestake had successfully refined its sand filtration system for removal of suspended solids. But complex cyanides remained a problem. In fact, Homestake was looking where none had looked before. There was no known technology for cyanide destruction. A federal court fined Homestake $40,000, and the company agreed to pay the state an additional $350,000 for stream rehabilitation.
We have to submit the EPA.
Environmental protection was now a part of Governor William Janklow's new Department of Water and Natural Resources. Bob Neufeld was secretary.
A consent decree has been signed by Judge Bogue in Rapid City. This involves a time schedule for continued research by Homestake on the treatment of its effluent.
Homestake built a new chemical laboratory, initiated research, and finally identified, after 18 months' work, analytical methods that would aid in development of a treatment process.
The numbers that were established in the permit levels were so low that we had basically no way to detect these limits. So a great deal of our research in this laboratory is designed toward perfecting our tests so that we can read these very low trace levels.
Could fish live in the effluent produced by the treatment? This was the ultimate question. Bioassays were initiated in January of 1980. As Homestake's research continued, Whitewood Creek showed further improvement, despite the higher-than-allowed levels of cyanide and heavy metals. Analysis of the stream in September 1980 revealed a variety of life,